Forests can have amazing three-dimensional structures, particularly in the old growth phase of a forest. You've got the big old trees, but I think one thing that gets overlooked really is the spaces between the trees. Even a forest, a dense forest, is mostly space. And that space is an integral part of the structure of the forest because it's used by the birds that are flying between the trees, it's used by the insects perching on the foliage, and there's even spaces within the trees. So perhaps one of the most important habitat features of old trees is the hollows that they contain. And those spaces are used by nesting birds and bats and by invertebrates as well.
Trees are obviously trees in their own right, but trees are habitat for a myriad of other organisms, from quite large ones like birds and mammals that might nest in tree hollows. They might be feeding on foliage. They might actually be assisting the trees in their dispersal by spreading seeds around in the landscape. And then when those trees fall over, you have logs on the forest floor, and their structure as well. So they're habitat for mosses and little ferns, and sometimes they're the best place for the new crop of trees to germinate and grow because they're not being scratched up by birds on the forest floor. So these different structural elements of the forest, and that can include soil and rocks, and maybe you could even extend it to water. So the streams that are flowing through forest areas are all providing unique habitats, and they have particular species that are completely dependent on those habitats and wouldn't be able to exist if those habitats didn't exist.
I like to think of nature as fractal, which sounds a bit complicated, but really it means that the closer you look, the more you see. So when you first go into a forest, the first thing you notice is the trees, and you might possibly hear or see some birds. But if you get down on your hands and knees, you might start noticing smaller organisms, fungi or beetles or something like that. And if you take a sample of the soil home and put it under a microscope, you'll see a whole new range of species. So the closer you look, the more whole new worlds open up, and that's what I mean by fractal.